If you've been following the channel for a long time, you may know that I am a big fan of Onyx Path Publishing. I started with Chronicles of Darkness, and I've since gotten into Trinity Continuum and a bunch of other of their games, especially the storypath game system. Now, there have been a lot of releases recently in regards to that. They came from the RPG Anthology, Trinity Continuum Aegis, and The World Below. I'm going to focus first on the RPG Anthology, where you get to play a bunch of different genres of movies in game form. So what is They Came From the RPG Anthology? It's based on the They Came From game line that Onyx Path Publishing has been doing for quite a while now. It is storypath system based, with a rules appendix for storypath ultra, as well as quick play rules if you want to just get some people who aren't familiar with RPGs in. They Came From is essentially paying homage to a lot of media and genres of fiction. You have things like They Came From Beneath the Sea, which is 1950s sci-fi horror. They Came From Beyond the Grave, which is sort of like your 80s like gothic horror type movies and fiction. And of course, They Came From the Cyclops' Cave, which is very much a like sword and sorcery type game. I would say it's very akin to Hercules and Xena if you watch those shows. Oh, and my favorite, They Came From Classified, which is your 1970s spies. But this book itself contains about 11 different genres, as well as the full rules to play the storypath system or the storypath ultra rules. It is an appendix at the end that you can sort of like adjust slightly to get the game to work with that system. I will say, I think this is probably the best way to get players who are very storypath curious into the storypath systems for, say, games like Trinity Continuum or Scion, because there are at least 11 genres of of games in here, ranging from like Bridgerton themed or Clue or westerns and sci-fi opera, things of that nature. So it has something for everyone, in my opinion. You have at least 5 archetypes per genre, and I'll go over them later on. I think some of them even go up as far as like 7 or 8. They're equivalent to character classes from Dungeons and Dragons, if you're unfamiliar with that. And just to say, if you're familiar with like Chronicles of Darkness or World of Darkness, They Came From uses kind of a similar system called Storypath, which uses D10 dice. So if you have a boatload of D10 dice, you're already set. And in case, let's continue on. I'm going to try and get through this as quick as possible and in one take, even though I've re-recorded this a bunch of times. Character creation is very simple. You have paths, which are sort of like background, specialty lore about your character. You have your character origin, which is sort of like where they came from. Are they like a street rat? Are they a criminal? Are they someone who like was born into wealth, things of that nature. You have your archetype, which is sort of your trope archetype. You have things like heroes, anti-heroes, sleuths, like a lot of different types of archetypes. We'll go over them in detail. They're your main like character class, I would say. Ambition is sort of like your character's goal. It's another goal on top of aspirations. I find it hard to explain, because aspirations are like your long-term and short-term goals for your character, whereas ambition is sort of like your main motivation, as it were. Again, this is a good idea for like people who are familiar with like acting and improv. Like, I think it pays homage to a lot of those types of tropes. And in case I'm getting ahead of myself or divergent in an entirely different topic, aspirations are your character goals. You have short-term, long-term. Short-term usually are completed in one session, whereas long-term are completed over the course of multiple sessions. You have skills and attributes, which you add together to make your dice pool. So if you have like a 3 in a skill and a 3 in an attribute, you add them together and you get 6 dice to roll. Rewrites are a resource that get generated throughout the game. It enhances rolls and it can modify scenes. In some of the games, it can even allow you to change the story very drastically, which is really fun. Quips are quotes that, when said, grant rewrites. So if you're playing one of the games that's based on like murder mysteries, if you say a quote that you have on your character, like 1 + 2 + 2 + 1, that is a quip that gets played, you incorporate it into the story somehow, you get a rewrite to use to modify your roles later on. Tropes are your special abilities. These allow you to do things that kind of break the logic of the game a little bit. They're usually really beneficial. Some of them, I think, are pretty spectacular. An example of one might be, oh, you're able to find secret passages in this room, even though there weren't secret passages there before. And you have a boatload of others. I'm trying to think of another one offhand. Dress to kill, things of that nature. You have an outfit that is so extravagant that people are more easily persuaded by you. Then we have bonds. Bonds are things like your character's relationship with other player characters. Contacts are relationships with NPCs. Usually, if you want to like ask for help from an NPC, you would use your contacts. They're often related to your origin, archetype, and ambition in some way. Now, let's talk about the first game that I actually did run from They Came From the RPG Anthology, which is They Came From the Billiard Room with the Candlestick, which is inspired by Clue, or Cluedo as they refer to it in the UK. There are a bunch of archetypes that you can use in that. Butler, Colonel, Magnet, Meathead, Reverend, Sleuth, and Socialite. Your typical, I would say, your typical Cluedo cast. I really love playing the game. I had players who were going off the rails and doing things like, you can make it so that someone dies with one of your tropes, and that person may have been the murderer, and now you have to, as the GM, scramble to find the new murderer. It very much feels like a murder mystery night with friends, and if I were to do a LARP or something like that, I feel like They Came From the Billiard Room would be a nice like transition between murder mystery nights with friends to actual full-on LARP. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I hope I didn't spell billiard wrong. If I did, I apologize. Next up, this is the first one that's listed in the game, which is They Came From Cowboys Gulch, which is Wild West themed. You have your characters like gunslingers, gamblers, impresario, which is sort of your entertainers, your, I would guess, what do they call them? Like at the like bars, like you have like your bartender, your piano player, and then you have like the showgirl type characters. You have tracker, you have doctor, things of that nature. Definitely would use this to play games that are based on stuff like Support Your Local Sheriff, Wild Wild West, maybe Wild Wild West if I were to mix it in with They Came From Beyond from Beneath the Sea, or one of the sci-fi ones. Then you also have stuff like I would say like The Magnificent Seven. I forget. I'm bad with westerns. And my dad is probably rolling in his couch or lazy boy, upset that I don't remember Western names as well. They Came From the Mean Streets is Noir themed. This is, you have your archetypes of criminal, fatale, underdog, gumshoe, and newshawk. This is the type of game you would play if you want to try and do something like the Maltese Falcon or Sin City, things of that nature. I like that they call they don't have the femme fatale as an archetype, but they instead have the fatale, which we had a them fatale in one of my games, which was kind of a fun archetype. In any case, Noir, if you need it. They Came From the Bridgeton Rectory, which is a Regency era game. If you are familiar with Bridgerton, that is very much what this is inspired from, as well as like Pride and Prejudice and all the other, I said Pride and Prejudice and zombies, if you mix it in with They Came From Beyond the Grave. You have your archetypes of hero, rake, rebel, heart, charlatan. I feel like this could be very fun for people who want a less combat focused game, but there are still duels, as you can see through this image I have to the above me. I think I'm not looking at the camera right now, so I don't know where my head is at the moment. Where they came from the Interstellar Starship, which is your space opera themed game. You have archetypes like Explorer, Galactic Marine, Robot, Alien Technician, and Space. Not Arse, Space Ace. God damn it, I can't believe I did that. Okay, so this is your type of thing if you want to play a Forbidden Planet game, Attack of the Worlds, War of the Worlds, rather, and Mars Attacks, or things of that nature. You have They Came from the Bard's Quill, which is Shakespearean themed. You have the archetypes of the Authority, the Fool, the Idealist, the Knave, Lover, Paladin, and Solomon. You know what would be funny? Mixing this in with, I don't know if it would be Mean Streets, but maybe mixing this in with a modern setting, and you can play games that are based on like the Romeo and Juliet type stuff, like for instance, like 8 Simple Rules, I think, which was based off of The Taming of the Shrew. And then you had like, there was just a lot of 90s movies that were set in high school but based off of Shakespeare. There's an entire list of them somewhere. You can definitely find them. In any case, I would definitely try this out if I had a bunch of my theater friends still hanging out around near me. You have They Came from the High Octane Apocalypse. Of course, there's a death race theme in here. And if you hadn't noticed yet, some of the posters, or at least most of the posters, mention the person who wrote them, as well as in the starring section has people who are in the credits section, I think. Definitely people's names in here are from Onyx Path. Anyway, They Came from the High Octane Apocalypse is post-apocalyptic, and you have archetypes like the Blighted, the Exiled, the Leather Daddy, the Noisemonger, and the Road Warrior. This is stuff like Mad Max, Fury Road, even the original Mad Maxes. There are a lot of post-apocalyptic movies out there, and I can barely name them. But things like Fallout, probably you could do. Wasteland, those video games, I really like those. The Noisemonger, obviously, is a reference to the guy in Mad Max Fury Road who was on top of a car with giant speakers, and his guitar had a flamethrower attached to it, which was awesome. You have They Came from the Skull and Crossbones, which is pirate themed, and you have your archetypes of Commander, Devil, Sea Dog, Swashbuckler, and Trickster. This is if you want to play games similar to like Pirates of the Caribbean. Other swashbuckling adventures I can think of are Pirates of Penzance, but that's probably a little bit out of date at this point because that's Gilbert and Sullivan. But in any case, if you're interested in pirates and piracy, or even just the Age of Sails, I think this game would be for you. You have They Came from the Steel Dragon Tournament. You have Martial Artists. This is inspired, I think, mostly by like things like Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, but also probably things like Drunken Master or any of the other, like, I would say Man of Tai Chi is one of my favorite martial arts films of recent years, where a man was basically brought into a death tournament, but his martial art was Tai Chi, which is not about death. In any case, Tai Chi is more of a like stretching and stuff like that. The archetypes for They Came from the Steel Dragon Tournament are Empowered, Machine, Monster, Sorcerer, Specialist, Star, and Tournament Fighter. I can immediately sort of connect these to Mortal Kombat type characters. Like Empowered seems like Raiden, Machine is like Noob Saibot. You have Monster, which is kind of like the four-armed guy, I can't remember his name. Sorcerer, Shang Tsung, Specialist. You had things like Cammy from Street Fighter. You have Sonya Blade. And then you have Star, which is your person who's like Johnny Cage, and Tournament Fighter, who's like your Liu Kang, Kitana, things of people of those natures. They Came from Beneath the Capes and Cowls is probably like, I think it must be like the 3rd or 4th superhero themed game that we have from Onyx Path, but it is superhero themed, obviously, and you can do things like the Beguiler, like Mentalist type character, Blur, Speedster, Elemental, Icon, Mutant, Paragon, Psychic, Shadow. Maybe Beguiler I'm mixing up with Psychic, But these are the types of superheroes you can play as. If you want to do like Marvel, DC, some of the more campy comics from eons ago, you can do that. I definitely would say if you want to be more serious, you can definitely do that as well. They came from the meticulously planned bank job, and that title for that movie is very interesting. This is your heist-based game. You have your archetypes of enforcer, mastermind, mobster, smooth talker, and professional. I find smooth talker an interesting word choice to use because I love leverage, which is almost every episode is kind of like a heist, kind of like Ocean's 11. They didn't use smooth talker, instead they used grifter, and that was fun. Uh, Honestly, heists were really big for quite a while, so I feel like as far as like a genre goes, so I feel like this would be very great for your friends who are into things like Leverage or the Ocean's movies. So if any of these genres call out to you, please check out the link down below to Drive-Thru RPG. I highly recommend getting the print-on-demand books as soon as possible if you're planning on getting a physical copy, because prices are likely to change and go up soon due to tariffs. In any case, I will say that it is an affiliate link, so it'll help this channel grow. But also, feel free, like, this book has a lot of stuff in it. It has an appendix for storypath ultra rules. It also has a lot of rules for getting started with storypath. So even if you're just like, none of these genres are really calling to me, but I do want to try storypath out, I highly recommend this book for beginners who are just interested in checking it out, seeing what it's about. You can always find a nice one-shot for this, and I always find games like They Came From work really well as palette cleansers between other games. I used to say Paranoia XP was my palette cleanser because I want to kill a lot of players. I think They Came From is slowly taking that spot as one of my more, like, I would say, it's like my feel-good role-playing game to go back to. I always feel good after playing it, and it makes me feel like I've had a bunch of fun and and feel like my players have a bunch of fun when we play it. In any case, what other things do I need to plug? Like, subscribe to the channel. That always helps. Patreon exists. There'll be a link somewhere around my head soonish. And also, I think that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a good one.